She raised almost $1 billion. Her company was valued at $9 billion. Time magazine named her one of the most influential people in the world. Forbes called her the youngest female self-made billionaire in American history. Every single word of it was a lie. This is the story of Elizabeth Holmes, and it's one of the most shocking frauds in Silicon Valley history. Elizabeth Holmes dropped out of Stanford at 19 years old. She had one idea: a device that could run hundreds of medical tests from a single drop of blood. No needles, no labs, results in minutes. If it worked, it would have been one of the greatest medical inventions in human history. Cheaper, faster, more accessible healthcare for everyone. The problem was simple. It didn't work. It never worked. And Elizabeth Holmes knew it. But she had something that many genuine inventors don't: an extraordinary ability to make people believe. She studied Steve Jobs obsessively. She adopted his aesthetic, the black turtlenecks, the minimalist design, the reality distortion field. She trained herself to speak in a deep, authoritative voice. She made eye contact that made people feel she was speaking directly to their soul. And she started talking. Investors lined up. Not just any investors. George Shultz, former U.S. Secretary of State; Henry Kissinger; James Mattis, who would later become Secretary of Defense; Rupert Murdoch. These were some of the most powerful and sophisticated people in the world. And every single one of them handed her money, without ever seeing proof that the technology worked. By 2013, Theranos had partnered with Walgreens and Safeway. Real patients were getting real blood tests from the Theranos machines in real stores across America. The results were being used to make real medical decisions. The machines were giving wrong results. Patients were being told they had HIV when they didn't. Others were told their cancer markers were normal when they weren't. People were making decisions about medications, treatments, and surgeries based on numbers that were simply invented. Behind the scenes, Theranos was secretly running most of its tests on conventional machines from other companies, the same machines Holmes claimed to be replacing. Employees who raised concerns were threatened with lawsuits. Some were fired. Holmes created a culture of fear and secrecy inside the company. Nobody was allowed to talk to anyone outside their specific department. The left hand was never allowed to know what the right hand was doing. Then one person decided he had seen enough. Tyler Shultz was a young employee at Theranos and the grandson of board member George Shultz. He had gone to work there, believing in the mission. What he found inside the company horrified him. He documented the problems, tried to report them internally, and was immediately threatened by Holmes and her legal team. He went to the regulators anyway. In 2015, Wall Street Journal investigative reporter John Carreyrou published the first major exposé. Theranos attacked him publicly. Holmes went on television and called the story false. She doubled down. She kept raising money. But the regulators were already moving. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services inspected the Theranos lab and found it so deficient it posed immediate jeopardy to patient health and safety. Holmes was banned from operating medical laboratories for 2 years. Theranos voided years of test results. The company collapsed. In 2018, Elizabeth Holmes was indicted on federal fraud charges. In 2022, she was convicted and sentenced to 11 years in federal prison. She had raised almost $1 billion. She had partnered with major retailers. She had fooled some of the smartest investors on earth. And her machines had put real patients in real danger. But here's what makes this story different from a simple fraud case. Elizabeth Holmes genuinely believed, at some point, that she could make it work. Former colleagues describe a woman who started with a real dream and slowly crossed the line into delusion, who convinced herself that the ends justified the means, that if she could just buy enough time, the technology would catch up to the promises. It never did. The scariest part of the Theranos story isn't the fraud, it's how easily it happened. How a 19-year-old dropout with no medical background, no working product, and no scientific evidence convinced the most powerful people in America to hand her nearly $1 billion. All she needed was a black turtleneck, a deep voice, and the absolute certainty that she was going to change the world. She was wrong. But for a decade, almost nobody noticed.